It is the end of 2024. So with that, I want to talk about some of the popular cameras of the year, or at least the popular ones that I own. So let's get into it. First, one of my favorites that was like top of the year or even into even into 2023 was the Nikon Z8. Now this, even though it was introduced last year, I think this year it was popular because, you know, people finally were able to get it in their hands, like people who actually shoot on Nikon. And, you know, it's one of those cameras that gets overlooked because it's Nikon, but it is honestly one of the top performing mirrorless cameras. I feel like I owned it for a minute, and I've always been very vocal about my stance with Nikon, even before the Nikon Red Mix, which I think Nikon has some of the best neutral colors in the game for mirrorless cameras. Sony shifts more greenish. Canon shifts more magenta. Nikon gives you a very neutral foundation. And again, everybody who knows me knows I'm about workflow, and I would love to have a neutral base to play off of. And not even just that, as somebody who was a former photographer, when you are on set and you're showing clients, you don't want to show a raw, you don't want to show something that doesn't look good, and you have to explain to them, oh, we're in post, it's going to be like this. Like, I want to be able to get it straight out the camera in a very good foundation to where when they see it, they feel good about it. But then I also feel good about what I can build upon from that base picture and base image. And so to me, I've always loved Nikon's colors, but the Z8 really did itself with the video capabilities when they introduced it. And so being able to have, you know, 8K in the camera, it literally has in-log, it has RAW, it has 8K, I think it has 5K, it has a lot of formats that you can use, ProRes in camera. Like, the video capabilities of the camera is amazing, and it's just one of the cameras that was, to me, a really good highlight of the year, the Nikon Z8. And I definitely say into the new year, if you're still looking for a mirrorless camera and you're into the Nikon system, or you just want to give something new a try, the Nikon Z8 should definitely be kind of paid attention to and looked at. I think it can still stack up even into the new year. The DJI Osmo Pocket 3 is a camera that is a talk of the year. It was the highlight camera of the year. Content creators went crazy over this and still are going crazy over this. I own one. I like it. I don't love it. I think it's good for vlogs. It's good for convenience. It's good for just knocking out content. But for me, and going into the new year, I want to show up when it comes to quality. There's a certain way I want to show up. And so I'm probably only going to use it for like documenting smaller things, but not like big things. And so, but for the small factor, the travel friendly, I got the creator kit. You could take it everywhere. It was such a good camera that they came out with, especially after having a couple of Osmos. I've tried a couple of their older Osmos, and they did really well with it. 4K, how easy it is for switch from vertical to horizontal. You have more. You're able to control it a little bit more now with all the manual settings. Being able to use the app with it, like, it is a gem. And it is definitely the highlight of the year. This is probably more of a highlight of the year than the FX3 or the FX30 family. Like, the Osmo was the highlight and is the highlight. It's like, did DJI make it classic? Like, that's crazy. And so this was the highlight of the year for sure. From there, I ended up getting the Blackmagic 6K full frame. And I've owned the Blackmagic 6K, the Pocket. And if you looked at my previous videos on my YouTube, I love Blackmagic. I love their sensors. It's probably one of the best sensors that would get you close to Ari. And I used it shooting the Women King when they were shooting with Ari, and it matched beautifully. It's a simple camera. I literally owned it when I was growing as a filmmaker, and it really grew me so much, and it even grew my clientele, to be honest with you. I had a mirrorless, and the minute I went to using the Pocket 6K, I started getting calls right off the bat. The image is top tier. The menu it has the best menu system, best menu ever. I love that it has false color already in the camera. Like, there's like the actual tangible things that I would use in the camera has always superseded any other camera to me personally. It doesn't have all this random stuff that you don't need. It just gives you what you need, and that's pretty much it. And so I think it's one of the more user-friendly cameras. With the 6K full frame, again, my Pocket, it wasn't full frame, it was Super 35. And so getting the full frame and getting open gate, top tier. And that was a highlight for a quick second of this year when Blackmagic announced it, before they announced the Pyxis, which is my other camera that I am shooting on as I speak. And that is a Blackmagic Pyxis. And now we all know that this was the highlight of 2024. People were waiting on that box format, y'all. We've been waiting forever, since the 4K Pocket, the 6K Pocket. We was waiting on this, the box we've been asking for, and they finally gave it to us this year with the Pyxis 6K full frame, open gate. They changed a couple things. Ergonomically, there's some pros and cons, which I'll talk about in another video. But overall, I am super excited to be back in the Blackmagic system, in the Blackmagic family, and super just excited to get back to, like I said, the image is top tier. So even though I love, you know, my Sony Fx3 and all my other cameras, it's something about the image with the Blackmagic. And so I'm just thankful for being able to have this. And, you know, again, it was big this year. And I think for the price range that it is, if you're trying to get into cinematography, if you're trying to grow as a filmmaker, this is one of the best user-friendly cameras you can get to kind of grow in that getting out of the mirrorless into a cinema camera. So this is one of the cameras that I would say to get because of the price range and everything you get for it. And then the L mount itself is such a versatile mount. So I really love that too. So with that, we're going to talk about my Sony Fx3. So of course, my Sony Fx3 is one of my favorite cameras. That is going to go down as a classic, like the 5D Mark III. You hear me? And I don't have it right now because I broke it, unfortunately, trying to shoot a YouTube video. And I love the Fx3. It is the most convenient camera that you can have. Great low light, beautiful images. It is more on a clean side, but like all this year, I was shooting on the Fx3 when I wasn't DPing and shooting behind the scenes, and it really is an amazing small camera. Like, I take it everywhere because it's tiny. You know, with every other camera I've talked about, the Fx3 is probably the smallest one. Outside of the Z8, the Lumix, both Blackmagics, the Fx3 is the smallest one. So I use it for social media. I use it for behind the scenes. I use it for client work. It is the most versatile camera that I own, and I hate that I broke it. I'm trying to get it fixed. And so that is going to go down as a classic, and definitely was one of the top highlights of this year, and will probably continue being a top highlight, especially if they come out with another version of the Fx3. People are calling it their dream cameras and trying to get their hands on it to this day. Okay, even getting it during COVID, which was I think 2021, and it's still being talked about till today, is crazy work. And so it is definitely a highlight and will probably continue to be a highlight in the new year. The Lumix S5iix. Now, I received this camera, and I'm not really a Lumix person. I never used a Lumix before I got this camera. Now, this was a highlight because, for me at least, because, you know, one thing about the Lumix, every person I know who had a Panasonic Lumix, whether it was a GH5, a GH4, they are in love with them. They're like, man, my GH4, like to this day. And so it was cool to be able to give Lumix a try and see my thoughts. Again, I'm not really a Lumix person, but one thing I liked about it was, you know, the open gate that it has, as well as it kind of like, out of all my cameras that I own a lot, it had a lot of resolutions and formats that a lot of cameras don't have. So like, I think that was really, really dope, and so many options when it comes to that, that I think is super dope. Now, that was the biggest thing for me, honestly. Outside of that, I think the ergonomics I really like. When it comes to the Nikon Z8, I'm not fond of the screen, how it flips and things like that. But overall, the Lumix, to me, I'm not really a technical person, so the biggest thing was the resolution formats and the options that it gives, the open gate that it gives as well. But other than that, like, because I'm not a Lumix person, like, I don't get into the technicality of it. Like, as far as what I would use, that's what's important, and the overall image and what you can get from the Lumix itself. Being able to also play with the new camera that I've never touched a Lumix camera. I've never owned one. So being able to finally play with it this year, year was super cool to see like my thoughts and like open up my brand awareness and open up, you know, my access to learn new cameras in this year was really, really dope. And as you can see, I own all of these. I'm trying to condense my life, but I do own all of these. And I will say for each one, they have their case. Blackmagic, I have two, so I love to use those for interview style content. Definitely more documentary style. The Nikon Z8, since my FX3 is under construction, I've been using the Z8 for my social media content. And in case I ever need to do behind the scenes photography, I definitely will go with my Nikon Z8 for that. But social media, reels and stuff, because I don't even have to shoot raw or like log, I can shoot with the colors baked in because they give beautiful colors. That is what I've been doing with my social media content. My Sony FX3, of course, I'm going to continue doing that for behind the scenes, for client work, whatever, whenever I need to. But the Blackmagic will go forth for like specific type of shoots, interviews, and things like that. And the Osmo is just my fun toy that I use every now and then, you know, if I decide to do a vlog or, you know, just documenting my family and just different things like that where you don't have time to set up a lot. You know, I might be going to Africa or I might be, you know, going out the country to Portugal or wherever, and I just want to bring something small. Then the Osmo is always good to put. It fits in pretty much all purses, and so that's just like a thing that you gotta have, right? And so the cool thing about owning these cameras is finding the tool that works best for that particular project. I might not always use my FX3, I might not always use the Blackmagic, but I have certain tools that works for different projects, and I'm honored and I'm thankful that I'm able to pick and choose what works. And so that's the cool thing about having multiple ones. But I'm also, you know, brand agnostic, camera agnostic, whatever works for that project is what I'm going to use, which is why even as a DP, I might rent an Ari, I might rent a Sony Venice, I might rent a Burano, or I might say, hey, rent my Blackmagic from me, rent my FX3 from me. And so it really depends on what the client wants and what the project entails and what works for the project. So let me know your thoughts and what you feel like was the camera highlights of the year. And I'm super excited for what we're going to see in the new year from these camera companies, because this is a good time to be a creator. This is a good time to be a filmmaker, but it's also a good time to realize that it's not the tools, it's not the camera that makes you, it's like what you bring and what you can do with the tools that you have. And so excited to see what you all do in the new year, and I'm excited to see my growth in the new year. Let me know your thoughts. Leave them down below on what camera is your favorite camera of the new year. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next video.